I think for me, it's kind of fitting answer with the theme of never peak, right? Because I don't know if it's something I'll ever accomplish, but that's almost why it's worth pursuing.
Myles Biggs, it's been 7 years since we
7 years.
last talked on the podcast.
Yes.
You've accomplished a lot since then, and I want to dive right into it with a more fun question than I typically start with. What have you not yet accomplished that you deem worthy of pursuing?
Wow. Yeah. Just get right into it. Like you said,
Yeah.
that's a big one. Not yet accomplished that I deem worthy of pursuing. Wow. Um, Gosh, my brain's just racing through, like recapping what I have done, what I still want to do, all of
hmm
that. I think I think for me, it's kind of fitting answer with the theme of never peak, right? Because I don't know if it's something I'll ever accomplish, but that's almost why it's worth pursuing. And that is just like the general sense of fulfillment. Like I still don't feel fulfilled. I still feel like there's more I want to do, more I can do, more I should be doing, or that the things I'm doing I can do to a higher degree. And so it's worth like continuing to show up and try to do what I am doing better and then try new things to just search out what I'm fully capable of and just, I don't know, keep going. So it's not one thing. It's just like this amorphous idea that I don't know if it's even possible, but you won't know if it's possible unless you keep trying to find it.
That's great. Always chasing, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Chasing a better version of yourself, and that's exactly what Never Peak stands for. In my opinion, creating the brand and sort of trying to live it out to my best ability over the last several years. Well, author, podcaster, Ironman, ultra marathoner, TEDx speaker, husband, father of two, and much, much more. I want to go back a
Yes.
little bit. Childhood, teenage years. Were you always on the path to succeed in so many areas of your life?
I would say no, not always. Going back to childhood years, I feel like so much of what I've done, all those fun things you listed, it's like equal parts because of my childhood and in spite of my childhood. And I'll explain. So I grew up very severely asthmatic, like very bad asthma. I remember to the point they repainted our gym at school in like the third grade. And I remember just walking into the gym and smelling the paint fumes and like immediately, like almost immediately, like could not breathe, like throat completely closed up, had to go to the nurse, get what's called a nebulizer treatment, which is where they like take the medicine and it kind of turns into a mist that you inhale to open up your airwaves. And so it was something I always struggle with. And so as a result, exercise was very hard for me. Um, Being generally overweight runs in my family to begin with. And so you add on top like an inability to be active in the way that most kids are. Um, the two combined to I was like the chubby kid. I was a chubby kid with asthma with the last name Biggs and the first name Miles. And so you could just imagine the jokes that people came up with as a result as a kid, right? Like Miles can't even run a mile or Biggs is so big, all the way up to kilometer smalls, which is my personal favorite. But it made for a lot of just like internal focus because the external outlet wasn't there. And so I was very much in my head a lot, frustrated by an inability to do certain things, frustrated by the way, like how mean people can be, and just comparing myself to what others were able to do and what I wasn't able to do. And just like, I think that put a chip on my shoulder that I still am like reeling against now at 35 years old. Um, but it also helped lay the foundation, right? So it's like I learned a lot about like how I do and don't want to treat others the way I was treated. It made me want to prove myself. And so if I couldn't prove myself, physically at the time, I really leaned into, intellectual development and academics and other activities like Boy Scouts, that like were very good for me at a time. And then eventually I grew out of it, right? Like I think it was just like like most kids' puberty stories go. Like seemingly overnight, I went from like the chubby kid with asthma to like I shot up 6 inches and was lean, and it was good. But as a result, like things that came easy to others just didn't come easy to me. But that chip on my shoulder just gave me this like just overall resilience and drive to just prove others wrong, but prove that I could also do it to myself at the same time, which was like a good combo. Swimming really helped me. I started competitive swimming at the age of 8. I got tricked into it by my friend's mom. And I tell her this story all the time because if she hadn't done this, I don't know where my life would be. But we had just moved from New Jersey to PA, and it was like a summer swim club that my family joined. They needed kids my age on the swim team. There was like 2 boys in this age group. Um, and she's like, "Why don't you like race my son? He's on the team and he's pretty good. Like if you can beat him, you could hang with like everybody else and you should do it." I didn't know at the time that her son was like the absolute stud of the swim team, and like went on to swim and get like a scholarship to Penn State for swimming, like super fast, super athletic. And he totally let me win, just dogged it. And so like it made me think I've got it. I'm the best. Right. And I grew up in New Jersey. So swimming for me was in the ocean, and like my stroke was horrible. Like my head wasn't in the water. I swim with my head out of the water because in the ocean you can't see anything, right? So you got to see where you're going. I ended up winning this race, joining the swim team, but then just really found a love for it because in the idea of never peak, right? Like you can always work harder at a sport like swimming where it's just kind of you against you. Yes, you're on a team, but nobody can swim your race for you. It really comes down to it's a time-based thing. It's not like in baseball if like you get lucky with a fly catch or it's something like that, right? It's like you work hard, you get faster, and there's a direct correlation that you control, which I really appealed to me and I liked. It's the same with scouts, right? It's like you do these things, you move to the next rank. You do these things, you get to the next rank, and it's like a plan you can follow, and you can feel that success and forward momentum. So I felt that with scouts, felt that with swimming, and I continued to swim all the way up through college. Met my wife through swimming as a result. So it's like if that hadn't happened, I really don't know where I'd go because so many of my great things in my life have come out of swimming. Um, so that was my foundation, was just like really struggling with athletics, leaning into intellectual, but then eventually I just never gave up on athletics, even though it was hard for me. Like I still had asthma when I was doing all the swimming, would have to take inhalers and would often struggle in practice being able to breathe and was slower than most people. Got made fun of and bullied on the high school team because I wasn't good, but I just kept showing up to practice and kept showing up and eventually hit that growth spurt and kind of grew out of my asthma and like the foundation was there. Um, and so that took me really all the way through high school was this combo of swimming and scouts were my 2 main things. Growing up, I played soccer, was not good at it. I scored 1 goal across like 3 years because I tripped and fell, and more people were focused on me falling and didn't realize that when I fell, I kind of kicked the ball, then it rolled very slowly into the goal, and I got a goal. That's my soccer my soccer goal. Basketball, I think collectively across 2 years, I scored 1 point. Not even like a regular shot worth 2 points, like 1 foul shot was my basketball career. I played baseball up through 8th grade. As the chubby kid that couldn't really run, I was the catcher and just sat behind the plate as a larger target to pitch to. I liked baseball, but it was harder for me with the running at the time. Like my high school, not high school time, like my going up through school, it might have been high school, but like I remember my mile time when we had to do the mile for gym class was like 16 minutes. Like it was not good, huffing and puffing, like dying out there with the asthma. So swimming became my outlet, scouts became my outlet, and then school became my outlet. Um, and then in college, I really just sort of focused on reinventing myself. Like that identity of like the chubby fat kid or whatever kind of followed me all through high school because I wasn't very social as a result. I was very self conscious, didn't have many friends. Even though I had kind of grown out of it, I was still self conscious and was still that person in my own head. So when I got to college, I made like the decision to just stop being that person and reinvent myself a little bit with all these people that didn't know me. you could be whoever you want to be when you're in a new spot, right? And just force myself to be more social. I was on the swim team, became very active in like on campus activities to now what I'm doing with ultra running and the triathlon stuff, you know. But I think at the end of the day, it all stems back from like feeling like inside I'm still that like chubby kid with asthma that people said couldn't do it. And it's fun to be like, watch me do it now, you know?
That's yeah, awesome story, and it's always fun to see how quickly some kids can adapt to a growth spurt or to finding a passion in other sports. Were you passionate about swimming, or was it just kind of an outlet for you to put energy into and see success come from that?
Yeah, I never really thought about it. It was something that I fell into it and all my friends did it. And so it became more of a social thing, I think, more than me realizing the time, like what it was giving to me. It was just like, this is what I do. And to hang out with my friends, it's go to swim practice. And then that swim club we joined became like this social center outside of school. And the friends I made at that summer swim team, like were my friends. They went to different high schools because this pool was like serviced multiple communities. So I didn't have a lot of friends at my high school, but all my friends went to different high schools and we all had swimming in common. And we'd swim at the summer league together. We'd do like the YMCA team in the winter together and then come back in the summer and like we all worked as lifeguards or in the snack bar at the pool and would ride our bikes to the pool and hang out. And those were the guys that I started a rock band with in high school. And we were in a band together and did that thing for a while. And they were the people that were the groomsmen at my wedding, you know? So, um, it wasn't even really about swimming. We just all happened to do swimming. And it's only like looking back that I realized like how great the sport was. Um, I just did it because that's what my friends were doing, really. And then I was kind of okay at it and enjoyed it. Um, and so I stuck with it.
You think you would have found success if you had chosen a different club or sport to join?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Um, I want to say like sure, probably, you know, but it's hard to know. It's something that I chat about with my parents all the time because when we lived in New Jersey, I was on a much different trajectory there, but just because like what was normal growing up in like a beach adjacent town in New Jersey was much different than what it's like in landlocked Pennsylvania, right? And if we had stayed in New Jersey, I probably would have taken up surfing. Like my mom had surf lessons lined up for me with a guy that she worked with that did it. And so like would I have stuck with surfing and just like it's like me in the waves and it's similar idea where you can just always get better at surfing and would it has done that? You know, my grandfather and his brother big into fishing and like his sister and brother-in-law had this like commercial fishing company. Like I could have very easily been a fisherman. Like quite literally just gotten a job working on the family boat and done that. And so it's hard to play the what if game. So I don't know. I'd like to think that like I am who I am regardless of that experience and it would have manifested another way. But but if I'm honest with myself, like I know a lot of who I am today is because I did those specific things, you know? So who knows? Some alternate reality is out there somewhere where I did
Yeah.
something else.
Gosh, I wish I could see those alternate realities because
Right?
there are a lot of them, and we all have those moments where we sort of choose our path. And it sounds like for you, choosing to join that swim team or your friend allowing you to beat them in that swim race, like that's probably one of those moments. Can you think of any stories or moments where you mentioned the momentum that sort of came from maybe joining that swim team or other decisions that you made. Any stories where you feel like it was the momentum, or maybe it was sort of somebody bullying you, or you mentioned maybe some difficulties there that did spark something internally that has led you to where you're at today?
Yeah, I think on the bullying front, right? Like I think it was hard for me because in when we lived in New Jersey, I was like the popular kid. And I had a because you grew when you're young, it's like you grow up with that group of kids and you know each other through kindergarten, whatever, and you've got those close relationships. And we moved in 3rd grade. So I was 8 and a half when we moved. And then I get plopped in this new ecosystem where everybody knows each other and I don't know anybody. And that was hard because like I was already semi self conscious and then I just really retreated into myself and became very introverted and the bullying didn't help. But I think a change for me was in high school where the high school team, probably like most high school sports, like, I didn't know the term hazing back then, but like 100% I was getting hazed by these upperclassmen, just jerks for no reason and pulling stupid pranks and doing whatever. But there's this one kid, I never forget, he was so odd, but he literally looked at me from like the first day and he was like, "I don't like you." And I was like, "Okay." Like, "My name's Miles. What's your name?" Like, we hadn't even, like, met each other, and he's like, "Something about you, man. It's just like the pheromones. Like, I don't like you." And he was just like and he didn't, and he made my life hell and was a real a-hole to me, and, like, these people were just trying to get me to quit the team. I was not the fastest, and they would try to drop me in sets or lap me or, as a freshman, I was still kinda chubby, and when we would have to leave the pool and go run stairs in the high school, like, that was hard for me with the asthma. But what helped was having somebody who, like, saw the potential in me, and the coach at the time was really in my corner and would, like, hype me up and would talk to me about the ideas of, like, grit and resilience and heart and pushing through and, you know, "I see what you're doing, keep doing a good job, keep showing up," and I think the tipping point was when I earned my varsity letter my freshman year because I hadn't even thought about that, like, you see it in movies like, oh, these Letterman jackets and whatever, and I it was associated with, like, football or, like, the stereotypical, like, macho sports. I didn't even really think about it for swimming. Um, and so that was like I was like, "Oh, like, if I keep showing up, even when nobody wants me there, but I wanna be there and I wanna prove that I can do it, like, I can make it happen," you know? And so I swam all 4 years, and then I swam all 4 years in college, and I was captain my high school year in high school, and then captain my senior year in college again, and just because I didn't quit when others wanted me to, when others said like I didn't belong there. It's like fine, like you don't have to want me here. I'm going to prove that I can do this. And there's a certain like unspoken confidence that comes from that. Like you walk in a room where no one wants you to be there, then you prove that you deserve to be there just as much as anybody else. Can apply to so many things outside of sports. But I think that was a turning point for me, and I've taken that lesson and applied it, several times since.
It's a great lesson for a teenager to learn,
Yeah,
and especially moving at such an important age. I mean, we our 3-year-old, we had to move to a new preschool a couple months ago now, and he came home just the saddest little guy in the world for a full month and a half, and sounded like he was getting called names and just that outsider because, as you
yeah,
mentioned as well, like it's one thing when you grow up in a community and then you just have friends by proximity. Like you grew up with these kids, so you never really had to make friends. You just had friends. That
exactly.
was him.
Yeah.
He was popular at his old school, which is fun to say about a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, but
No, but you
like,
could definitely see it as a kid, like, as a parent of your kids, right?
mhm,
Like, you could tell when kids are in the group or out of the group, and it's hard for them. Yeah.
it is. And it's one thing for a 2, 3-year-old who probably won't remember that, but a whole different thing for a teenager or somebody even slightly younger than that who knows what's going on and can feel the eyes and
Yeah.
any sort of differences that they might have. Just that feeling of being an outcast is not a good one. And
No. But I'll tell you,
yeah,
like, the positive part of it for me that I can appreciate now is it really helped me become self-reliant, right? It's like, no matter what circle I'm dropped in or area I'm dropped in, having that comfort level and confidence with just yourself and who you are as a person like, is something that nobody can ever take away from you. It's hard to get there, and it doesn't feel good, and it would have been much easier to just fit in. But I also don't think I would have the levels of perseverance and things that I have now if I hadn't gone through all that stuff, you know? So as much as it hurts to see our own kids go through that now, whenever I see my kids experience it inside, I'm like, good. Like like this is gonna be good. You know, like it sucks now. I get it, but like this will be it'll be good that you went through this one day, you know?
What were your 20s like?
Oh gosh. Excuse me, clear my throat here. My 20s, man, I feel like I lived a lifetime in my 20s, man. Um, Starting in college when I wanted to reinvent myself, like I was saying, I was Mr. Social. On the swim team, making a bunch of friends. I joined a fraternity. I ended up being president of the fraternity. Um, I was like the best at partying. uh, and so I had a lot of fun. I mean, a lot of great memories. Did a lot of stupid stuff, got a lot of stuff out of my system in college that I'm glad I did it in college because that's the place to do it is in college. And then
Mhm.
when I graduated college, um, I I put my head down and just worked, man. Like my wife and I were reflecting on this just a little bit ago. We think about how different our lives are now. But when we first graduated from school, moved into with each other, we both would go to work at like 7:30 and we wouldn't come home till like 6:30 at night. You know, it's like we were both just working. And it worked for me, right? Like my 20s, I spent working at a company and climbing the ladder. I started at that company as an intern while I was in college. And then by the time I was 27, I was general manager of the company. It was a $50 million organization with 400 employees that I was running the day to day operations of and reporting to the CEO at 27 because I stopped doing anything else but work, right? Which I don't necessarily recommend, but it's certainly, again, looking back, has its advantages now because of where I'm at today. It's because of that period of imbalance. So many people love to talk about work life balance, and I've come to realize that you don't get work life balance unless you've gone through a period of work life imbalance. Like the balance is a privilege that you earn through like not having it if you really are going to achieve it. Um, at least that's been my experience, and I'm sure plenty of people will disagree with me. That'll be a nice soundbite we can cause some controversy with after this. But
Perfect.
what I mean by that is like I was working, man. I was working like 80-hour weeks. I was working on the weekends. I was going into the office on the weekends because this was back before like I had a work laptop. I had a work desktop in an office I had to go into if I was going to work, right? Because no one was working remotely yet. And I just I did it. I said yes to everything. I was traveling. I was going to every event. I was taking on every side project. I was not exercising at all. I was just working, and that was most of my 20s until I got burnt out because that's not a really great way to do things, right? But in my 20s, I started my podcast that I had previously that you were on those years ago called Relish the Journey because I was searching still for where I started, like this idea of fulfillment. I was doing all the stuff. I had all the things. At this point, I was at the top of the corporate ladder. I had the nice house, married, had our first child, you know, but I'm sitting there at 28, 29, about to leave my 20s, being like, is this all that there is? Like, what? I don't really know if I want to do this forever. Like this kind of sucks. I don't I don't like this. I'm quote unquote successful, but it doesn't feel good. And so the podcast was really cool because I started that in my 20s and it helped me expand my circle. You know, I was living in central Pennsylvania at the time. It's joke about Pennsylvania being Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and Alabama in between. You know, no shots at Alabama. It's a great place. I actually have family in Alabama. But it's true. Like it's very rural. There's not a lot going on necessarily. People can be very close minded in their thinking, and so the circles you run in can be pretty like incestuous. Everyone knows everybody, and there's not a lot of mixed thought going on. And so the podcast helped me open up and expose me to different people, different ways of thinking, see how other people have done it, and help me wrestle with this idea of what do I really want to do, and not just what I want to do, but how do I want to do it? How do I want to feel about what I'm doing? Where do I want to do it? All of that stuff. And so the podcast was great. You know, I spent from 27 to 29 in my 20s, I would go to work every day, come home, my wife would go to bed, and I would go back to work at night for myself. This was back when hustle culture was huge and everybody's like grind, grind,
Mhm.
grind all the time. And it's not about your 9 to 5, it's about your 5 to 9, that sort of thing. And so my 5 to 9 was the podcast. And I was running mastermind groups in the evening as like a side gig. I started my own LLC and I was doing consulting and business coaching and accountability coaching, like literally whatever people would hire me to do, I was doing it from my attic at the wee hours of the night to just figure myself out, like expose myself to a bunch and figure out what I really want to do and hear from people, their stories and how they learned and try to learn from them, all of that. And it culminated in, you know, 29. When I was 29 is when I wrote my book, Unseen Work. And then I was supposed to give the TED talk on unseen work um, right before I turned 30. But then the pandemic happened in 2020 and that got pushed off into like November. So yeah, the 20s was work, man. It was party and then work. And then kind of find myself at the end going into my 30s. So I'll pause, let you react to
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I align well with what you said on the balance side of it too. It seems like the work-life balance that people think of nowadays comes as soon as you graduate college, and that's just not the case. You do need to put in the work. You gotta sort of earn the call it status or the knowledge and prove yourself, show to yourself that like you can get the work done from 9 to 5 if you want to spend your
Yeah.
5 to 9 doing something else.
Well, and that's the
Uh,
thing, right?
mhm.
Touch us not for a second. Like work life balance is possible. You can be balanced, but then you can't also have all the success that you also want in your career that people say. Like, I want to graduate from college and I want the manager job and I want to make all this money, but then I also only want to work 40 hours a week and I want my work life balance. And it's like, okay, cool. You can have work life balance, but it's going to cap your earning potential and it's going to cap the status that you have. You can have it, but you can't, like, you can have anything, but you can't have everything, right? And so you have to make choices. And so for me now, I have a better work life balance and making the money I need to make to support my family and the status because I've earned that through that period of imbalance. And now I can forge that balance for myself because I've built the foundation. You can't just skip that step and just go right to the prestige and balance that everybody craves.
Mhm.
So yeah.
I'll tell you a quick story. I'd love your reaction to this. I think it's one of my favorites. So I brought one of my friends to hang out with somebody I know who's ultra successful, and uh, this friend of mine was really looking forward to getting advice from this person. Really excited to ask some questions. And one of the first questions he asked was, as we're in this person's multi-million-dollar home, what's the secret to work-life balance? Person looks at them, kind of smiles, and says, balance is for ballerinas.
That's amazing. He's like, get out of my house.
Literally, I mean, it is just the
Yeah, I love that.
biggest
That's a
mic drop. It's funny to me because it is so true in so many ways. And you mentioned like the hustle culture that was so existent in, gosh, I mean, that was like probably 2018. I was walking through the skyways of Minneapolis with Gary Vaynerchuk blasting in my ears. Do more, do more. Grant Cardone comes out with
same, dude.
10x, do 10
Yes.
times more than you're doing now, and then you'll be successful. Like, that was such an era that, in a lot of ways, it just led to a lot of unfulfillment. And I think there was some great habits that came from that. Like, you have to do hard things every day, but at the same time, look back at what you've achieved and realize that I think Hormozy says this, uh, you've already achieved things that you said would make you happy. Like,
Yeah, it's so true.
spot on.
It's so true. The finish line keeps moving, right? But you still have to acknowledge that you've come further than you ever thought you would come, even if the finish line isn't here yet. Um, so that leads to my 30s, which maybe what is going to be your next question, right? Like, so 29, beginning of 30, I published my book. I have the TED talk, and it's like the next moment where I'm like, holy crap, like I've checked off all of these bucket list things I never thought were going to be possible. I had the successful podcast, couple podcasts at that point. Um, you know, and then published a book. Like, not many people do that. The TEDx thing, not many people do that. And it was cool. But then I had like one of my very first, like, what do I do now? Where it was just like I had been building up, preparing for the TED thing, man. Like, I spent a year writing that talk, memorizing it, doing the book. Like, it consumed so much. I went so narrowly focused on that thing that when it finished, I didn't have like the next thing lined up yet. And so that was like one of the first times where I was like happy and sad because of success at the same time. Because it's like the pursuit of that thing becomes such a part of your daily life. When you no longer have it to pursue, you're left with a hole that you need to fill. Um, and that was difficult. And around the same time, my second son was born. So when I was 30, in the pandemic, which was a very interesting experience. And at this point, I had changed careers, right? I had left that corporate gig where I climbed a ladder. I walked away from it. I took a $20,000 pay cut. I started at another job that was more aligned with what I wanted to do, and I was building up my side hustle stuff to try to make it the main thing. Because my wife's goal had always been to stay at home with the kids, and having a second kid meant that daycare is about to get a lot more expensive. At some point, it makes sense to have one person work and the other person raise your kids. Otherwise, somebody else is raising your kids, right?
Hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Just to say, like, I know people listening to this, like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but it's just not what her goal was. And so my goal became to help, like, her fulfill that goal. And we spent a lot of the pandemic paying down our debt. Another big name, Dave Ramsey, and like his snowball effect of paying down the debt. We did that, and it works to get the household numbers low enough where we could survive on one income as long as it was a specific number. And so I had this very specific number in mind that I was working towards, and I was either going to get there from my side stuff or I would need to get a new job. So I ended up getting a new job that hit the number. It was out in Pittsburgh though. And so talk about hard things. Like, we had to leave this house that we had just built a couple years before that we had thought was going to be our forever home on 2 acres of land, scenic, like awesome. We moved to Pittsburgh and traded the brand new house for a 1950s brick 2-story, full of home renovations that we've had to do since we moved in about 5 years ago. But now we're closer to family. All of my wife's family is within like 20 minutes from where we live. So the boys have like grow up near family, and we also have support with them, which is helpful. But when we made that move, that was a turning point for me, where instead of doing the 9 to 5 and then the 5 to 9 at night, I kind of came to this realization that the podcast thing, the book thing, the TED thing, like, it had done what I needed it to do, which was get me to this moment. And so that was a hard realization for me, because I realized that the passion I had for all the content creation I had been doing for the past, it was like 4 years at that point, was just waning. Like, I didn't really love it anymore. And I had to like come to the realization that it was time to hang up the microphone metaphorically and focus on something else. And so I didn't know what that next thing was going to be, but I knew I needed something. And, I have anxiety diagnosed. I've had been on medicine for it, but I didn't like how it made me feel. And so I was weaning myself off at the time. We were moving. I was starting a new job. I'm coming to this, grappling with this, like, what is my identity thing? And so, having not really worked out at all, remember, like, I just worked, not really exercising. It started a little bit in the pandemic, like anybody, but it wasn't anything crazy. I signed up for the Pittsburgh Marathon, and I had like 8 months to train. I had never run a marathon before. 7 years prior, I had run a half marathon, like right out of college, but like no training, like cocky, early 20s, like, sure, I can run it. Wasn't fueling, wasn't hydrating. Like, it was a mess. but I hadn't done anything. But I signed up for the marathon, and I quite literally could not string 2 miles together without stopping. Remember, this is the asthma guy. Running was never my thing. I was a swimmer. Running's completely different. But I just picked something that I knew would scare me so much that I had to prepare for it properly, or I was going to hurt myself or not achieve it. And so I signed up for the marathon. Classic runner move, told everybody in my life I'm training for a marathon, partly because I just needed that accountability where I didn't want to have to go back and tell people I didn't do the thing I said I was going to do. And I did it. I finished my marathon and then experienced that feeling again of what do I do now? And that like that low that comes after you focus on something singularly for so long and then it's gone. So I signed up for another marathon. Okay. And so then I started training for that. I ran a 50K as a lead up to the 50 miler. Then I did a 50 miler. And then I signed up for another marathon. And then I signed up for a 100 miler. And I did the 100 miler in 2024. And then I did an Ironman in 2025. And then now I'm doing another 100 miler this year. Like my 30s have become like still building up my career. Like that company I joined in Pittsburgh, I started as a director. I just got promoted to senior vice president. We started at 35 employees. We're now at 250 employees. So the company's grown and I've grown with it, which is a cool career arc for my resume, right? But instead of the 5 to 9 being in the evening, I have the 5 to 9 in the morning before the 9 to 5. Like I was
Mhm.
texting you this morning at like 4 a.m. when I was like starting my run. And so that's probably the biggest change that Ironman training brought me as a dad of two was like realizing in this idea of balance, there's a way to have balance, but it's not really balance, it's trade-offs. So I can train for a full distance Ironman, which if people listening don't know what that is, that's a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike into a full marathon run. I could train for that, which I was training 20 hours a week. I could train for that and work my full-time job of 40 to 50 hours a week and be a dad of two. It just means that I'm waking up at 3 in the morning and training for 2 hours, showering, eating breakfast before the kids wake up, then going to work, then doing the kids' activities, going to bed and doing it again, you know? And so to me, that's when the click happened when I found running as like my outlet, where it was again that thing that I was doing against myself and I could get better at, like swimming was, and see my progress as a time based thing, but also as a mileage based thing. I can run more miles in a week and I can get faster and feel that sense of accomplishment and forward momentum while getting the mental benefits of that clarity that comes from running and the endorphins that help like with stress release and anxiety and all of that while still navigating two kids that are growing in age that have their own lives and their own activities that I've got to do, maintain a healthy marriage, you know, all the things that we do as adults by waking up super early and doing it. So my 30s now have become more like athletically focused than ever. My life now, it's funny to like where we started this, like it wasn't the athletically focused, but now it is, um, to the point where like I had a company sponsoring my Ironman, you know, like I never thought that would happen, but it did. And so, and I'm only halfway through. I'm 35. I turned 36 in March. And so there's a lot left and we'll see what else happens. But right now it's just, it's again chasing the what else is possible feeling with ultra running and things and just continuing to pick longer and harder races just to find the edge of what's possible. Uh, and also my kids see it, right? And to me, that was a realization too, as I was doing all this stuff at night that nobody was seeing. And it was still very intellectually based and like in the ether, like having great conversations, publishing a podcast. Sure, that's cool. But like the kids don't understand what that is. To this day, my kids just think my job is sitting in the basement and talking to people all day. If you ask them what dad does, like he just talks to people and types on his computer. It's like, you're not wrong. It's more than that, but okay.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about it's like when they wake up early and they come down and I'm running on the treadmill or I'm lifting weights and they say like, Dad, can I do that with you? And I always say yes and figure out a way to do it. Like my rule is anytime the kid asks, Dad, can we go for a run? It doesn't matter how much I've already run that day or how tired I am. It's yes, let's go. After my Ironman the next day, they're like, Dad, can we go for a run? So it's the day after I do my Ironman, I'm wrecked. And I went and ran. I only made it a half a mile, but I ran with my two sons because they wanted to. But that's what's fun for me is now in my 30s, it's thinking everything I do, they see. And so I want to make sure what they see is what I want them to see. And it's something that it's like a good behavior for them to model. Not that there's anything wrong with podcasting, whatever, but kids don't understand that and they don't really get it. And, but they understand when they see me in the basement on the bike trainer on a Saturday morning and they come and sit with me while I'm riding the bike and we're watching TV. And then they see me do the Ironman. Like I know it connects for them. Like, oh, Dad's doing that to do this. And maybe one day I can do that too. That's something that was never modeled for me as a kid. And so it's cool to think about what they'll think is normal and what they'll be able to do because of what I've done becomes fun. And that's more the focus now for me is laying the foundation. I've had the foundation laid for me. Now it's how can I help lay the foundation for them through all this crazy stuff, you know?
Through the generational unseen work,
There you
right?
go. Yeah,
Tell me
absolutely.
more about what that is and the 3 kinds of unseen work.
Yes. So in the book, I talk about 3 types of unseen work: generational, active, and passive. Um, how I got at that was, when I was doing all the mastermind stuff with podcasting, somebody in the mastermind group asked me if I ever thought about all these podcast interviews as qualitative research for a book. And I never had. But once they said that to me, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I went back and listened to the first 100 episodes of my show, which included interviews with my parents, with my grandparents, um, aunts and uncles, like sisters and stuff, like which is really neat. Um, and the generational part is I realized in talking to them, but also talking to anybody, people like you, right? Like when we spoke, you talked about how your entire family was entrepreneurs, and look at you with your own business, right? And then talking to my parents, um, they their childhood and even their lives, anybody in my family, not one of them is doing the types of things that I'm doing, right? And so I distilled this idea that generational unseen work is the idea that um, everything that we do is because of what the people that came before us did, you know. And to back up even further, I'm rambling, but if you haven't read the book or listened to the TED Talk, the key kernel here is the idea that you have to do the unseen work so that when you are seen, you have something to show for it. It plays right into our work life balance thing, right? It's like you could be entitled and just want it right away, but what it takes to get there, nobody really talks about, and you can't really see. You just see the result of this person with a balanced life, and you know you want that. Unseen work is everything that you have to do to get there that people don't see. And so generational unseen work is one of those things where we're doing what we're doing because of the people that came before us and what they did. And we either do exactly what our family did, like we see what they did and we want to model it and we run towards it and we're proud of that legacy. And it's like, I'm going to do what my dad did and maybe I can do a little bit better because I have him as a mentor and he can help me. I can learn from his lessons, all that good stuff. Or it's the opposite where you're like, I see what my family did and I don't want to do that. I'm going to run in the opposite direction. And it's very rarely in between. So, like, I think you're an example of running towards it in many ways. I'm
Mhm.
an example of running in the opposite direction. And so for me, for my kids, maybe they'll run in the opposite direction, which will be interesting. They're like, Dad was crazy. And, he never watched cartoons with me in the morning because he's always on his bike. And I don't want to do that. I'm going to go do this.
Mhm.
Fine. Or they're going to say, like, this was cool. Look at what Dad did. And I can do it too. And maybe I can beat Dad in the race. So their generational unseen work is everything I'm doing. So as they grow up and I'm telling them stories of running the marathons or the 100-mile race or the full distance Ironman or writing the book or doing the TED Talk or, you know, other random stuff I've done. Like I used to take flight lessons. And so I've flown a plane solo and I've sang the national anthem at a minor league baseball game. And like I've done a lot of weird, crazy things. I just like collecting experiences. I can tell that to all of them. And for me, I grew up not knowing a lot of things were possible because I didn't know anybody doing those things. So a big focus for me is I want to not just tell my kids you can do anything you put your mind to. I want to show them that anything is possible, but by being the person that's making things possible and doing all these different things. And then they can see that in me and then get that positive self-talk and feel confident pursuing the things of their own because I make it safe for them to do that because I'm modeling that behavior.
Yeah. For those who have not listened to the TED Talk, I highly recommend it. I'll link it in the show notes as well.
Oh, thanks.
But yeah, I mean, really powerful insights that uh, help you stay motivated throughout the journey because there are so many moments where you're unseen. And uh, I mean, that you mentioned it 3 to 5 a.m. If you want to train for a marathon or an ultra marathon or an Ironman, like it's a lot of hours you have to put in. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people do postpone those sort of goals in their life to their late 20s, early 30s. And at that point, a lot of people are parents. And when you're a parent, I'm a dad of two now, like you are tired. You are,
Yeah, you are.
I mean, your time is so limited. Even right now, I'm sitting here with a baby monitor on, like in case our 3-year-old wakes up and I need
Yeah.
to jump off. So, yeah, your time just becomes so limited. So, your motivation and discipline, rather, is really what needs to improve drastically more than where it needs to improve if you don't have those kids in your life yet. And that's not to say you can't do it. Like, you're the perfect example of somebody who has done it all while having kids. But that's, again, where that work-life balance, it does get sacrificed in some ways in hopes that later on it can improve.
Yeah. And even like the life balance, right? Like we use work as the example, but like think about everything we do in our personal lives, right? Like you could spend your time watching Netflix, scrolling through Instagram, reading books, cooking, whatever it is you'd like to do, right? Like there's things we do within the life part that take up time. And so whenever people say they don't have time to do that, or like, hey, it must be nice to be able to train for that and do this. And it's like, okay, like whatever you have to tell
Mhm.
yourself to rationalize the fact that I'm doing it and you're not, like I'm no different than anyone, right? Like I'm a normal dude. Right. I grew up as the chubby fat kid with asthma, right? It's not like I'm athletically gifted. I've just worked at this and I haven't stopped. And so I'm able to do it. And I've chosen to wake up early to get it done before work and before the kids wake up so that by the time I'm exhausted at the end of the day and I do just want to doom scroll on Netflix like anybody else, I've already got my workout in, and it's like, so it becomes a prioritization thing like anything. Life's just a series of trade offs and decisions that we have to take accountability for. And I've just now built my life around like, this is normal for me. Like, this is what I do. It's not even a decision for me anymore. My body just wakes up naturally now early. Like I've trained it where I'm just up. And so if I'm up, I might as well be doing something productive, like going for a run or hopping on the bike or recording a podcast where we started this at 6 a.m. Right. I told
Mhm.
my wife, I was like, yeah, by the way, I got a podcast recording tomorrow. She's like, what time? I was like, 6 a.m. She's like, what? It's like, does that really surprise you? Like, me.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
so yeah. And that's the other
Yeah.
part too, right? Like, shout out to my wife if she listens to this. She hears enough of me, so she probably won't, and that's okay. Um, but so much of this that I do is possible because I have a wonderful life partner that gets me as a person and supports me and is as invested in my goals and aspirations as I am. Like when I was running my 100 miler, she was my crew chief, right? She was refilling my water bottles in the woods at 2 a.m. as I'm running, and she ran the last mile with me. She paced me the last mile of that race. And it's possible to do it if you don't have the support of your spouse, sure, but it's just so much harder. And so having that person in your corner always is the best thing and helps make it all easier when you're doing it as a team. So shout out Claire. She's the
Take
best.
me take me to that moment, that final mile running with Claire. What were you feeling?
Oh my gosh. I was in so much pain, dude. My 100 miler, it rained for the first 5 hours. So that like about the first 50K, pouring rain. There was no, like, as much as you try to stay dry, if it's pouring rain for 5 hours, like you're wet. You're wet everywhere and your feet are wet, which was the biggest thing. So it's one thing if you're gonna do a 50K and your feet are wet, not that big a deal. But when you're doing 100 milers and you start with wet feet and you just can't ever really get them dry, I got such bad blisters on my feet. Um, by the time the race was at that final mile, I could barely walk, let alone run. And I was hallucinating. I was seeing those little coconut monsters from Moana, those guys that like shoot the tar.
Yeah.
That was
Oh,
my
yeah.
hallucination, was those little dudes following me in the bushes, peeking up, and like every time I'd look at them, they'd pop down, and it was like really tripping me out. I had I didn't have trekking poles, um, but I could barely walk, and so I was scrounging around the side of the trail, and I found these two tree branches that I like. At this point, I'm so sleep deprived. It was like I'm drunkenly stumbling around trying to break this branch in half. And I ended up successfully creating two trekking poles out of tree branches. And so I'm like using them to offload the weight from my feet. And I knew she was going to be at that aid station. And I saw the light in the distance. And it was almost like a Rocky yelling Adrian moment where I was just like, Claire, are you there? You know? And at the same time, I was looking at my watch doing the math, and I had a goal of doing the 100 miler in less than 24 hours. And I was coming up on the final mile, and I had like 15 minutes. And I was like, okay, like it's possible if I don't stop and I'm like power walking like a 7-year-old at the mall right now, like with my trekking poles trying to get it done. And I was, dude, I was clocking off like 13-minute miles walking. I just like found a rhythm and just didn't stop, and I had my poles. And so she just like ran alongside me. I was like, we're going, like so she's like
Mhm.
jogging to keep up with me, and I'm just power walking my way to the finish line. And it's so funny, dude. Ultras versus marathons. Marathon, the finish line is like there's people, there's air horns, people cheering. It's like crazy loud. The finish line of a 100 miler ultra is the most anticlimactic thing because
Mhm.
everybody gets so spread out throughout this whole race. Here I am finishing at 23 hours, 59 minutes, and like 12 seconds. Like I just eked it out, something like that. Um, and there's nobody there. It's like the race organizer and one volunteer sitting in a chair going like, "Woo, good job. There's your belt buckle. You can go now."
Yep.
And Claire was right with me, and I crossed the line, took my picture, grabbed my belt buckle and my mug that I got, and just like collapsed into the car and went back to the hotel room and started the process of like the painful healing post 100 miles, dumping myself into the bathtub because I'm shaking because my body's not regulating the temperature properly. I'm tired, I'm cold, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, I'm in pain, I can't sleep, but I want to sleep. Like it's a mess. You feel like every human emotion at once after one of these things. But it was great. It was really cool to be able to share that moment with her. At that moment, you're so broken down to just have the friendly face and the support of like the person you love most right beside you as you cross the finish line was the best. Um, so I don't know if she's going to do it again, if she'll pace me again at this next one, but she'll certainly be out there, crewing me and helping me out. So the goal this time is to not have blisters. So I've worked a lot on foot care and what to wear, not wear, and the right socks, all that good stuff to try to avoid it should it rain again. But what I've learned, if I'm going to race, it's going to rain. So it rained for the 100 miler and then the Ironman. It torrentially downpoured for like 70 miles of the 112-mile bike. And of course, I was doing it. I'm just like, of course, like, of course it is. Like, I knocked out the swim in an hour, which is really good for an Ironman swim. Like, I was getting out of the water with some of the pros that started ahead of me. Shout out swimming background.
Mhm.
But that's the shortest part. So it's like nice to get that done in an hour, but then you got to get on the bike, which is the greatest distance. And I had never touched, like, I touched a bike, but like I never raced a bike or a triathlon bike ever before. And so I had like 8 or 9 months from the time I found out I was doing the Ironman to the race to become a cyclist. And so it was not my most confident discipline. And you throw on top of that rain, and you're on these little skinny road bike tires. And I did Ironman Lake Placid, which is in the Adirondack Mountains in New York. And so there's a lot of mountains you're going up and down. If anybody wants to Google the Keene Descent, Keene for Lake Placid. That's like the big descent in the race. You have to do the 2 laps. The first lap, it didn't rain. The second lap, it was like I could barely see 2 feet in front of me, torrentially downpouring, and I'm having to go down this mountain. My top speed was like 40 miles an hour in the rain on this bike. It was the scariest thing I've ever done. Um, it was crazy. So it'll probably rain for the next race too, and I'll just have to like give myself over to it. I know how to do it in the rain at this point. But it makes for wild memories and stories.
Yeah. That's it's Murphy's Law, right? Like,
Yeah.
whatever can happen will happen at the worst possible time, and,
Yeah, man.
it's unfortunate that it always seems to work out that way. Here in Minnesota for the 50Ks that I've done, I love that you mentioned the finish line, first of all. Like, just the most underwhelming finish. I've done it twice now, and the first time, like, my parents and, like, some random lady with a cowbell was sitting there, like, cheering, and then second time, my parents were out of town. My best buddy, was there with, like, a Coors Light, and they gave you, like, a coffee mug.
Yeah,
So I'm, like,
exactly.
drinking a Coors Light out of a coffee mug, and it's so funny that, even in that situation, it doesn't take away from the feeling that you have internally. What has been your
Yeah.
experience of the feeling as you cross the finish line after training for such an incredible accomplishment?
Yeah, the initial well, first, real quick, the finish line, underwhelming. Also, the start line can be funny. Like, I remember the starting line of a 100-miler versus a marathon where it's like fireworks and guns going off. The starting
Mhm.
line's literally like you're huddled on this trail in the woods, and then some guy just like, "All right, go." That's literally how they started the 100 mile. He's like, "All right, go," and I was like, That's it? Like, okay." It's just which is what I love about ultras, right? Because it's not about the start or the finish. It's about it's about the process. It's about the unseen work. It's this idea of never peak. It's like you versus you, even though it's a race, and what you go through throughout the race and even get to the race. That's what it's really about. So crossing the finish line and that feeling, immediately the feeling is like, thank God I'm done running, because you're in a lot of pain and you're tired because you haven't slept. And it's a very surreal feeling after. I have learned about myself. I definitely get like the post race blues. And so I have just committed myself to this where like by the time I finish, before I even finish the race I'm training for, I'm signed up for the next thing. So that I have mentally, I can switch to like, okay, on to the next thing. Like this is what the focus is. And it's not like I'm left with nothing. Because I don't do well with that. It's probably not the healthiest thing, but whatever. It works for me. Um, so you're kind of in disbelief that it happened. But then what's been interesting is um, between the 100 miler and the Ironman, I do believe it's fundamentally changed me as a person when it comes to just a quiet, unspoken confidence in the way that I move throughout the world. Like so much crazy stuff happens, so much unexplained, unpredicted stuff happens to us in work, in life, as we work for that balance, right? And it's easy to get down when things are hard, but but I have this new benchmark for what hard is. And I know I have the ability to work through blisters on the entire bottom of my feet after running in the rain for 100 miles. I have the ability to train for the Ironman, like go from zero like I'd never done a triathlon before. I did this iron like I did one Olympic triathlon and then I did a full distance Ironman, which is not recommended, but I did it, you know? And so you get this confidence in what you're capable of, and you know that you have the strength to persevere and go through and do really hard things. So when hard things happen to you that you don't choose, because we're choosing these hard things in the endurance sports, you're just able to navigate it in a calmer fashion. You don't get as riled up. You don't get as freaked out. You handle it better and you stay more in control of yourself and your emotions in these situations because you've built that mental toughness through the physical toughness you've had to endure as well. And so I've always been a pretty go with the flow person, but now more than ever, like nothing really phases me. the room could be on fire and I'm that funny meme, just like, this is fine.
Mhm.
We'll find a way out of this. This is all right. We can do this. Uh, which helps at work, right? It helps when you're in a leadership position and you need to guide other people who maybe aren't as skilled at navigating the situations. It's easier to be like, we got this. Follow me. We'll figure it out. Because you will. You can. We're all much stronger than we think. I was the chubby kid with asthma that was running the mile in 16 minutes, and now I'm an Ironman. It's like I never would have thought that was possible back then. I didn't think that was possible back then. I remember seeing people with Iron Man tattoos as a kid and hearing what it was and seeing it on TV and being like, "That's insane. That's the hardest thing ever. I could never do that." To then one day being like, "I could give that a try." Let's. How hard could it be? Let's figure it out.
Mhm.
And then committing to myself to figuring it out and doing it. So
Yeah.
that's just what I do
You
now.
you've redefined yourself, right? It's you talk about that in the TED Talk as well, how one of the first steps you need to take is deciding who you wanna become and then taking action, doing the unseen work to get there. And I 100% agree. I had the same thing 5 years back thinking, "I've never run more than a couple miles. How are people running 100 milers? This David Goggins guy is crazy for doing this."
Yeah.
That's right where everybody starts is this Goggins guy. And
The Goggins.
then
Yep. Absolutely.
all of a
I
sudden
was
you're
listening
signed
to
up.
him
Mhm.
during the 100 miler, actually. Like
Yeah,
when it got
it's
dark out and I didn't want to do it, I just turned on like a playlist I made of David Goggins podcast interviews, calling me a little bee and like all this stuff. I'm like, all right, we got to
yeah.
keep going.
Yeah, his voice just brings a different shiver down your spine than others,
Yeah,
given
it
all that
does.
he's got that stack of undeniable proof, right? That
Right.
he is who he's said he is, and that's what
Yeah.
we're all striving to
And
be too.
it's his idea of like the cookie jar, right? It's like you put the things that you've done and you got this little cookie jar of experiences that reminds you what you're capable of. And that's what I like about what I figured out when I was writing the book of unseen work. It's like the whole idea of unseen work is nothing new. Like it's like I discovered this new idea. I just put a name to something that's always been there for me and for others. But what's powerful about it is once you name something, you give it power and you also can control it. And so this idea of unseen work and you get to pick who you want to be and like even if it's unseen, the fact that you know it's the unseen work that's leading towards something, you can then take more control over this like plot that you're crafting for yourself. And instead of things happening to you accidentally or by chance or feeling like things are coincidence, it's like I am actively making these choices to make this thing I want to have happen in the future. It's really powerful because I wrote the book, I did the TED talk, and then I immediately went to work putting it to work. Right. Like I wrote the work and then I kind of went quiet. I stopped doing the podcast. I stopped doing stuff. And I've just been doing the unseen work in the endurance stuff and other things, like literally taking the theory and stuff that I had in the book and like putting it into practice. And someday I'm sure I'll have like a 2.0. Well, I can share more of these stories and things that I've done actually doing it. And it's not just like a theory. It's here's the application set and what I made possible for myself. And if I can do it, anybody can do it.
That's awesome. I want to ask you a few quick hitters, just given your
Sure.
experience with the ultra marathons, Ironman, and marathons as well. So, first off, what was harder, Ironman or ultra marathon?
That's a great question. And it's honestly like the thing I like was curious about. I was like, all right, so I ran 100 miles. What's like, what's harder? Like, what is harder, the 100 miler or the Ironman, And I do think the Ironman's harder. The Ironman's harder for a few reasons. In a 100 miler, yes, it's 100 miles, which is a lot. It's hard, but it's running. It's one thing the whole time. And when you run for that distance, you can kind of like zone out, even blackout kind of, and like forget portions of it. And you can detach mentally and just go into muscle memory, right? You can listen to music for some of the courses. You get to stop and eat a quesadilla and chill in the woods if you want to, right? The Ironman, it is like wall to wall, nonstop. Like you have to be mentally engaged. In the swim, it's not just a swim, it's like swimming and a boxing match because as all the rules that they have for the bike about you can't draft and you can't do this. In the swim, you could just get punched in the face, your goggles ripped off, your leg pulled down, pushed underwater, and it's like all fine. And so you have to swim, but also like defend yourself for 2.4 miles. That's a lot. And then you get out, you go immediately to the bike. You can't listen to headphones. It's 112 miles of you're on a bike, but then you also have thousands of other people on bikes whizzing past you. Like you have to stay mentally engaged. You have to understand how to be your own bike mechanic because if you get a flat tire, they do have roving support, but you can't depend on it or be guaranteed. Like you have to know how to change your tire. You have to know how to do all these things on your bike. That's a whole different skill set. And then you have to run after all of that. Can't listen to music. They have aid stations, but it's not the same. It's more of like that road marathon, like in and out mentality. Like it's hard. It is really hard to do all of that in one day, even though it's less time. So yeah, Ironman. I did one. There's nothing driving me to want to do another one unless one day my kids come to me and say, "Hey, Dad, we want to do an Ironman. Will you do it with us?" Then I'll 100% be back out there. But it was I need some more time to forget to forget what it actually takes before I willingly sign up for another one of those. It was tough.
Yeah, and no background in swimming for me that's my biggest hesitation for
Yeah.
doing the Ironman is 2.4 miles is a long ways. That is a long ways. So there would
I
be
will tell you
multiple
though, like
triathletes.
it's a long ways, but it's the shortest distance, and they give you like I think it's like 2 or 3 hours to complete it. Um, it's definitely possible, right? Especially if you're a
Mhm.
strong biker and a strong runner to still hit the cutoffs and not be the strongest swimmer. But it is hard. I mean, it's not just swimming; it's open water swimming, and that's a whole nother thing. Where there are people who are really good pool swimmers that when you get them into open water and there's no black line to follow on the bottom of the pool, people freak out and have panic attacks. But like, and it's dangerous. Like somebody that I was on the team I was on, they got kicked in the head so hard that they got a concussion, and they went to go get on the bike and they couldn't. Like they were falling over and like they got taken to the hospital in an ambulance from the race. It couldn't finish because they got hit so hard in the swim. So like it is no joke. Like the physical warfare that's happening in the water at these things, it's intense, and so you have to be prepared for that too. So but hey, like we talking about, it doesn't matter. If you really wanted to do it, you could do it.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that's for sure not what's holding me back. I'm waiting for the right time, and I usually have one big goal for myself set every single year. So it's not this year, but maybe next. It's definitely the
nice.
leading contender for next year. So
Yeah, that's cool.
another good question for you: must have supplements or food for race day?
Okay. And are we talking what race? Are we talking an ultra run or are we talking triathlon?
Let's talk. Let's make this applicable to more people than less. A marathon.
Marathon. Must have nutrition for a marathon is going to be a good gel, I'd say. There's a ton of new science coming out about high carb fueling and the benefits of it. And there's a lot of gels where a gel can get you 40 to 50 grams of carbs in one gel. The trick's going to be finding a gel where the ingredients agree with your stomach because you got to take, two of those an hour for, if you average like a respectable 4 hour marathon, which is like an average time for most people, that's 8 gels you got to take in of those, like 50 carbs a gel. So finding that good gel is huge because if you running fueled is a game changer and you'll recover faster and you'll perform better. So I'd say that plus a handheld water bottle. So many people try to just rely on the aid stations in a road marathon for their water, but in reality, those little plastic cups and you're moving, you're maybe getting like an ounce of water or electrolytes at a time. And that's not enough, especially if you're taking in that many carbs. So having a good handheld water bottle with just plain water or an electrolyte mix or like a carb drink mix is a must have too.
Nice. I could never do the gels for whatever reason, but I wish I could. They seem like such a cheat code to get the calories and the nutrients that your body needs in those pivotal moments too. Because
Yeah.
Like, you can only put down so much liquid, and good luck chewing at mile 23.
Right?
Like,
Yeah. I struggled with gels for a while too, and what I have found, especially in Ironman training, is there is, like, an adaptation period where you have to push through, like, your stomach getting wrecked and, like, it not feeling good, and then your body sort of adapts and is like, "Alright, you're not stopping, like, this is what you're giving us, we have to get used to it." But then there's also a lot of real food-based gels out there where it's not maltodextrin based. It might be like brown rice syrup or like a specific fruit puree or dates or something that can be gentler on the stomach that work for, I don't know if you tried those, but I like those types. Like those work for me better than something that's just straight sugar to get the carb source. Um, but yeah, once you find what works for you, it definitely helps.
yeah, everybody's always surprised by that. Like, you can train your stomach. That is
And
a
you have to
possibility.
train
It's
your
weird.
stomach. Yeah.
Mhm.
If you show up on race day and you're pounding those gels and you haven't practiced it, you're gonna have a bad time. So it's treating every long run or long bike like it's race day and fueling to get your stomach adapted to just taking that in for hours at a time is super important.
Okay, another question for you. You wake up, your leg hurts, you got a training run. Are you gonna rest or are you gonna do the run?
I'm probably gonna run, which I know I know is like not what doctors would advise, but I mean, here's the thing: like, there's it hurts, or I'm in pain, or I'm sore, and then there's I'm injured, and there's two different things. So like, if you stop running every time you have a little niggle or your leg hurts, like, what are you going to do in the race when your leg hurts? Are you going to drop out and DNF? If that's your goal, okay, that's good for you. For me, I want to finish when I'm starting, and so that means I have to get used to running in the rain, in the snow, when my leg hurts, when my leg feels great, when I feel motivated to do it, when I don't feel motivated to do it, when I'm tired, when I'm rested. Like, you have to do it. And so as long as I'm not injured, if I'm just a little sore and it's just like an ache, it's not like a sharp pain, then I'm gonna run.
Yeah, I would agree. And like you said, not a lot of people would feel the same way, doctors specifically, but it's the only way to, it's one of the only paths to learning how to do hard things, I think, is when you're pushing through when it is hard.
Yeah.
Uh,
And also, like, I don't know. I don't trust doctors if they're not also athletes when it comes to them giving me advice about what I should do for this, because there are so many doctors that are also smoking cigarettes.
mhm,
And so it's like, I'm not listening to you. Like, I don't care what your medical
yeah,
degree says. Like, sure, I'm sure you're very smart and you know a lot of things, but like, we're not the same. We don't have the same goals. So I think finding the right doctor, not just any doctor, is important when you're getting medical advice. And so, yeah, I just defended
couldn't
people
agree
with that
more.
too. You can post that soundbite. We'll light the internet. We'll light the internet up with some of my stuff here.
Love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get some good comments, I'm sure. All right. Do you still meditate, Miles? I know last time I saw you in Minnesota, you were on a long streak. So curious
I
where
was
you're
on
at
a
now with
streak.
that.
I was on a streak and I lost the streak one day and then I was just like defeated and the streak has not resumed. Um, I would say I do meditate, but it's not in the same way. I really find that running becomes a moving meditation, and I do a lot of runs, and especially in the lead up to Ironman training, I was doing a lot of training without any music or external stimulants because I couldn't on race day, and so let's get used to that. And when you just lock into the rhythm of the swim or the cycle or the run, eh, it is a like you're being present in your thoughts, you're being present in your body, and the mind body connection. Um, it's like a meditation for me. So I don't keep a streak anymore, but I feel like I have more of a general practice of mindfulness and more moving meditations than like a specific like guided meditation practice on its own.
Yeah. I'm really bad at sitting down. And so running has been one of the best forms of meditation for me because it does get me up and moving. And it absolutely, like you said, if you don't listen to music or a podcast or anything while you're running, your mind is going to go to places that meditation will take you to.
Yeah, totally.
I want to read you one of the best quotes that I've revisited recently. Uh, jump into it here. If you feel alone in pursuing your goals, you're not. You're just unseen, and that's okay. Use this invisibility to your advantage and fail as much as you can and as fast as you can, but keep growing and keep persisting. Perhaps the most beautiful part of your unseen work is that it belongs wholly and solely to you. These moments are pure and they should be guarded and treasured. The unseen work is absolutely necessary so that when you are seen, you have something to show for it. So these are your words, your closing words at your TED Talk 5 years ago. How does it feel hearing those words today?
It is, I think you're the first person that's quoted me to me. So that is odd to hear, truly. Like I'm bad at taking compliments. And so it feels like a compliment when you do that. And so my initial reaction is to shy away and be like, nah, forget about that. Mm, But, I had a similar experience this morning when I texted you and I was like, to prep for this one on my run this morning, I listened to when I interviewed you on my podcast in 2019. And it was really fun to hear 28-year-old me. Um, and like the way I showed up in that interview and the types of questions I asked and just like hearing what I could hear in my voice, which was excitement and like genuine curiosity. And so it's fun to revisit like previous Miles because he's was a cool guy and like had real powerful insights for somebody who was 28, 29. And in many ways, it's like I'm so grateful to myself for writing that book and doing that TED Talk because, um, if nothing else, it's a wonderful like love letter to me, current me, to future me that I can keep coming back to as a reminder um, of what I believe to be true, what I believe to be possible, what I know to be true. Still, I know to be possible, but sometimes you need that reminder, and it's really powerful to get that reminder from yourself um, versus other people. And it's kind of fun to think about myself being quoted in the way that I read quotes from other people that I look up to. And so it was cool to hear it back. I like it. It's a good quote. I still believe it to be true, and it's something that I like. I forget that I wrote it that exact way, but I've definitely internalized that for sure. Um, with everything I've been doing in my life since I wrote it. So yeah, so it's cool. I
Yeah,
like it.
it's a great quote. You did a great job at that
Thank
TED
you.
Talk, and I hope you give another one at some point because you've learned a lot since then. I would imagine the
Yeah.
physical challenges teach you so much about yourself and about what you're capable of. So, uh, yeah,
Yeah, we'll see. I get the question sometimes, like, when are you gonna write the next book or when are you gonna do another thing? I'm like, hey, it took me 30 years to do the first one. So
mm.
I still have some time before the
Yeah,
second one. Uh, but yeah, I have I have felt more called to it where like the idea has found it wormed its way into my brain more and more recently, and things like this also like reaffirm it and like water that seed. So one day it'll happen. It's just got to, for me, it's got to be something that I don't want to do it just to check the box and do it. It's got to be something that feels equally as transformative for me as Unseen Work did at the time for me to really like get behind it and want to put it out there. So we'll see.
I can respect that. In the meantime, what's next for you?
Well, I got to work today. So I'll do that and I'll go up, make the kids breakfast and hang out with the family before work. And then, you know, goal wise, like I've got another 100 miler in August. I'll probably hop into a local 100K before then as a prep. And also, I haven't done 100K. I did 50K, 50 mile, went to 100 mile to a full Ironman. So I got to go back and like check the box on doing that distance. But that'll be like a prep run to trial run things like foot care and whatnot before the next big 100 miler. And that'll be the focus. And then honestly, the next big challenge for me is my sister's getting married in October and she asked me to officiate the wedding. So I've got to get ordained and then I have to like write a service. So like in many ways that'll be my next TED talk is like
Mhm.
writing a wedding service and like get my sister married, which is it's a unique challenge that intimidates me truly. Like I've been putting it off. Like I know I have to do it, but I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be hard. And so that'll be the next like intellectual thing that I have to chew off. That I will probably do a lot of that work while I'm running and training for a 100 miler. I'll be like doing voice memos into my phone, like trying out
Mhm.
ideas for what to do in that moment.
That's running will be your best friends and when thinking
Yeah,
through. Yeah,
absolutely.
that's great. Athletic Brewing beer, is it as good as I've heard it is? I've never tried it.
Never tried it? Oh, yeah. I got a code. I can send you a code. You can get a discount. Um, yeah, it's super good. I stopped drinking in 2019. June of 2019 was my last time I had alcohol, and I pretty much thought like that was it. Like I'm just never gonna. I loved IPAs. I was like, I guess I'm just never gonna experience this again, and I just kind of resigned myself to that fact and was okay with it. But then I had an Athletic Brewing IPA, and it's so delicious. It tasted like just like the real thing with all the alcohol, but without the alcohol. So it's definitely delicious. I don't love all of them. I mean, I love the company. It's a great company, great people there. I don't love every beer that they make, but the IPAs are really good and definitely worth checking out.
Nice. Yeah, I'll take you up on that code for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, how can people find you online?
Well, all the content's still out there. At this point, I've let like the websites lapse that they reference and whatever because I'm not actively doing it. But if you search Relish the Journey wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find hundreds of podcasts there that you can check out. There was also a podcast called Unseen Work that I did around the book that you can listen to those episodes. You can find the TED Talk. You can find the book if you Google Unseen Work or my name or put that into Amazon or anything. You find all my stuff there. If you want to connect with me personally, LinkedIn's probably the best place. It's Miles. I use my middle initial there to be fancy. Miles J Biggs on LinkedIn. You can find me there. Happy to connect and chat with folks. It's also Instagram. I guess you can do Instagram too. Instagram's the same thing. Miles J Biggs. My profile is not private there, so you can find me on Instagram if you want to chat about any of this stuff. Be happy to connect with anybody and talk through life goals, running goals, triathlon goals, all that stuff. I love it.
Amazing. Well, we've got a lot to learn still from you, Miles, so I imagine we'll have you on again at some point, but thanks
I love to,
for the
man. This
time
was
today.
fun. Anytime you need a filler guest, I'm happy to wake up early to do this with you. I enjoy it. I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. We'll see you again soon. Thanks a lot, Miles.
All right. See ya.